Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Taylor Fisher. I'm a member of the admissions committee here at Darden. We're really excited to have you here today. I'm joined by a current student. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Claire Good. I am a current second year student here at Darden, and I'm actually a UVA alum as well. I went to UVA for undergrad and graduated in 2010. So excited to be back.
And we're also joined by one of our remote colleagues. Catherine, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Catherine Alford, and I work with Taylor on the admissions team. Glad you're all here.
Great. And I'd just like to point out, if you guys have any questions as we go through the webinar, feel free to type them into the chat box. Catherine will be trying to answer your questions as we go, and there'll definitely be plenty of time for questions at the end as well. So jumping right in, today we're going to talk about a few different things, specifically the value of the MBA, why Darden, and then more specifically, the Future Year Scholars Program. So Claire, if you think back to your time as an undergraduate student, what were you thinking about? Were you thinking about business school? Was the MBA something on your mind?
Sure. So I was fortunate in that I had a lot of role models in my life who had pursued advanced graduate degrees. So I always thought that I would eventually go back to school. Didn't know exactly when and didn't know what exactly I wanted to study. So while in undergrad, the MBA was still a little bit of a question mark in my mind.
Right.
But then one of my projects, my professional career right before I came to Darden, was around helping a couple of MBA programs kind of rebrand themselves. So got to be very involved in the higher ed space, and through that got a really unique and deep insight into what the MBA is, the process of applying, and then the value that you get from the different programs. So a little bit of a unique perspective into how I learned about an MBA. But when I was in college, it was definitely more of kind of an amorphous thing in my mind and not something I really knew or understood many of the details of.
Sure. Now, you said you studied business as an undergraduate student, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So I was in the comm school in undergrad.
Great. So do you think that experience as a student studying business as an undergraduate also kind of exposed you more to the MBA landscape and the degree as well, as compared to maybe some of your peers?
Definitely. So the undergrad program at the McIntyre School here at UVA is modeled pretty similarly to that of Darden in that you're in a section and you're on small teams where you work on projects together. So through that exposure, we got a little bit of a taste of what an MBA would be like. And in the classroom from professors, they were really great about helping us think through the next step of our careers and looking more long term. So they did bring up conversations around the MBA. So that also helped me crystallize my thinking. I had some friends and some peers who were not in the comm school who were studying things like English or history or engineering even, who did not have as much purview into what an MBA is. And it's interesting because now being at Darden, many of my peers and colleagues that I sit in the classroom with are people who don't have that business background that I did. So they were able to learn about the value of the MBA through different avenues.
That's great. So, to go along with that, we'd love to share a little bit more just about, the value of the MBA and what a Master's of Business Administration is. It very much is a general management degree, and it's for students that are interested in being leaders, whether it's going on to lead a company or a nonprofit or an institution. It's a degree that will provide you with both hard skills and soft skills to understand the ins and outs of an organization. I would say largely a lot of students go back for their MBA for a couple of reasons. One being to accelerate their career. They found after working for a few years, they're really interested in taking on more of a managerial role, and they'd like to move up within their current company. Another reason would be to make what we call a pivot or to switch into a new industry or job function. And the MBA is a really great way to gain a new skill set and get the foundation for that sort of experience. An MBA is also a great opportunity for students to connect themselves with a larger network. And there's also opportunities for increased earning potential. So Claire, you did mention a couple of times you were a student at UVA, but while you were a student, what did you know about Darden specifically? I know your situation was a bit unique, but as you were navigating the business school search process, was there anything about Darden that stood out to you?
Sure. So the first part of your question, what I thought about Darden when I was here, I mostly just saw it as this big, pretty building on a hill that was about a mile from ground. So very, very little knowledge
A lot of
it.
brick.
Yep. Also free coffee. So I used to come here for undergrad to study at the Darden Library and Law Library because there was free coffee. So I knew about it very, very high level, but didn't know anything about the program itself, the classes, why people went back and how the curriculum was all structured. So that was all new to me. I also had a family member who went to Darden, and of course, she described the experience very differently. She went in the 70s, and she always reminds me she had class Monday through Saturday. Now we have this cushy Monday through Thursday life. So, very different perspectives there. But what made me ultimately pick Darden and what made it stand out throughout the admissions process when I was going through applications is coming here and visiting grounds. So as I mentioned before, I had been working on a project that looked at a lot of different MBA programs. So I got to learn a lot about what made it unique. And at the same time, I also heard a lot of similarities across different business schools. So a lot of programs will talk about how they'll make you an ethical leader, help you think more critically, connect you with peers. But I found that the best way for me to differentiate among them was really to come and visit the classroom. And for me, that is what totally sealed the deal and made me confident that Darden was the right choice. I remember sitting in on a class when I was a prospective student, and each class in the first year, all students are broken up into sections, and each section has their very own special and unique traditions, including how they welcome prospective students. So I remember sitting in the classroom and just feeling like I was among a group of students that had known each other for so long. People had inside jokes. There was a lot of frivolity in the classroom, which I really appreciated and made me feel comfortable. But on a more serious note, there was also an incredible level of engagement that I noticed at Darden that I did not see at other programs. And for me, that was really important. I wanted to be somewhere where students were actively participating in class, where they were emailing or texting on the side. And I think that is something that is really, really special and unique here at Darden, is that students really, really want to be here and really want to learn. And that really stuck out to me and helped seal the deal for Darden.
That's great. And I'd like to underscore a couple of different things Claire was talking about. I think one thing we really pride ourselves on here at Darden is a strong sense of community. Being a smaller program, there's a lot of opportunities for students to engage with one another and with faculty. And I think that unique classroom experience Claire was talking about is also largely because of the way we teach here. Here at Darden, we do teach 100% of our core curriculum via the case method. Day in and day out, students are looking at real world business problems, cases, and looking at them from a variety of different lenses and coming up with the best solutions. So we expect our students to be prepared, but it does provide a really unique learning experience that students don't often find at other programs.
And just to piggyback on that, the caliber of the professors is incredible. One thing that stuck out to me in that visit and that has held true since is how impressive all of the professors are at facilitating conversations and discussions. So you never feel like you're being lectured at or talked to. It's more that professors will ask you questions that will make you think strategically and engage in dialogue with your peers, which I think is a really hard skill to master and something that I've been consistently very impressed by with the Darden faculty.
I will highlight as well, I think our faculty here at Darden are another one of our greatest strengths. They are truly people that enjoy teaching, and they're regularly evaluated not only on the quality of their research, but their ability to teach. And that's something that makes Darden a special place for a lot of our students. So with that in mind, we've talked a little bit about the MBA and about Darden specifically, and we're really excited to share with you all some more details about a new opportunity specifically for undergraduates and fifth-year master's students. So Darden's Future Year Scholars Program allows exceptional undergraduate students and fifth-year master's students deferred admission, allowing them to secure their place in a world-class MBA program before they even begin their professional journey. Once admitted, students can then choose to come back to Darden after gaining 2, 3, or 4 years of professional experience. And there are a variety of different incentives for applying to a program like this. I would say, namely, our admitted scholars receive a $30,000 scholarship in addition to being considered for all of Darden's other merit-based scholarships at the time of matriculation. They're also given access to a personal alumni mentor and individualized career support. We like to connect our students with the Darden Network, which I think is a really invaluable opportunity early in one's professional career. So to highlight a little bit of what the timeline looks like, the application for the Future Year Scholars Program is now live. So if you're an undergraduate student in your final year of study, or in a fifth-year master's program, which you began immediately after graduating from college, you're eligible to apply. There are two deadlines, those being May 1st and August 1st of this year. If your graduation date is between September 2017 and August 2018, again, you're eligible to apply. The application requires a resume, a transcript, 2 letters of recommendation, a short essay, as well as a standardized test score. Here at Darden, we accept either the GMAT or the GRE exam. We truly have no preference for either. We encourage students to explore their options online, perhaps take a couple of practice tests and see which test you lean towards. After applying, admitted scholars are given the opportunity to tap into our network. And that's through engagement with our community at events we host around the country, and with us personally. And it's a great opportunity to connect oneself with alums as well as other Darden faculty and administrators. We also, again, provide scholars access to an individualized mentor and career support. So those are a couple of resources at your disposal if you are to be admitted. Once admitted, you're off. You're beginning your professional journey. So scholars then choose to work for 2, 3, or 4 years. And this is not something admitted scholars have to decide up front. We understand that a lot can change during those first few years after undergrad. So we ask scholars at the beginning of each academic year whether or not they plan to matriculate to Darden the following fall. So we do provide a little bit of flexibility there. And then scholars are welcome to begin at Darden in as little as 2 years after graduating with their undergraduate or fifth-year master's degree. We hope that those first few years of professional experience will help prepare them to be active contributors in the classroom. And again, they begin at Darden with that guaranteed scholarship in hand. So once more, this is just an overview of what that timeline looks like. I know that was quite a bit of information to process all at once, but we're happy to answer your questions now, and feel free to put them up in the chat box. So we've got a good question for Claire. It seems like one of our viewers is interested in learning more about the student organizations you're involved with. Would you mind just broadening that and talking about student involvement here at Darden, what student clubs look like, how they're run, and a little bit about what you're involved with too?
Sure. So there are a lot of different ways to get involved with Darden from the second you come onto grounds. The first and easiest way, especially as a first year, is to join a lot of different clubs. When I think about the Darden club offerings, I usually think about 3 different categories that you could fit in with. One is clubs that are focused on career, so a club like consulting club or finance or impact, something that will help you learn about the industry you're interested in, and then, in my opinion, what was most valuable for me, help you prepare for recruiting. So I can use the consulting club as an example of one that I was involved in and continue to be involved in. When I was a first year, I came on grounds with the goal of recruiting for consulting, which for me was a bit of a pivot from my prior work experience. I found the consulting club to be an awesome resource. They brought firms on ground so we could meet with employees and get to know the different people at the firms and really get a better sense of what makes this company different from that one, which is very hard to do just perusing a website. They also did a great job with kind of shepherding us through the recruiting process, which starts early and has a lot of different steps along the way. I found them extremely valuable with interview preparation. So the club that was led by second-year students, which is true of all of our clubs here at Darden, they would help us practice cases for interviews and give us tips and just set out guidelines for how we should approach recruiting. So those clubs are extremely helpful. I think almost all of our students will end up joining some type of career club, if not multiple. I think I joined 5 or 6 when I first got here, just to kind of see what was an option. Exactly. So those are the career focus clubs. There are also clubs that are more designed for affinity groups. So those could be clubs that are based on gender or sexual orientation, religion, race, lots of different groups that are represented here at Darden. An example for me is I'm a member of the Graduate Women in Business Club. And they were extremely helpful, especially as a first year, to give another level of community and support. I remember coming into business school as a woman thinking, is this going to be, a problem in the classroom? Not at all. And I think that the Graduate Women in Business Club, known as GWIB, you might have heard that somewhere else, was a really great resource to help connect the community of women here at Darden. Then the third category of club is really around just having fun and exploring what you're interested in your passions. Two of my favorites here, one is called the Darden Outdoors Club. So they host a lot of really fun events like hikes, visits to different, cool places around Charlottesville, like cave spelunking or going up to Spy Rock to watch the sunset. One of my favorite events was from first year. The Outdoors Club hosted a camping trip and invited all first years to come. It was a great way just to get to know your class before classes started. Another club that's really fun is the Wine and Cuisine Club. So if you're not familiar with Charlottesville, there are a ton of vineyards and breweries and distilleries around the area. There's also a lot of really, really good food. I lived in New York prior to coming to Darden, so I was turned into a little bit of a restaurant snob and was very happy with the restaurant selection here. So there's a lot of really fun stuff to do if you're into the food scene through that club as well.
Yeah.
So other than clubs, there are also lots of opportunities to get involved with leadership positions, specifically on the Darden Student Association, which is kind of like our student governance, student council body here at Darden. You, as a first year, you can become a representative of your section. And if you like that experience, then as a second year, you can run for office and hold one of the positions that works with broader Darden and then is also tapped into leadership and what's going on with UVA. So something that I think is really great about Darden is that you have an opportunity to become a leader early on from your first year, and you have an opportunity to start something new. So if there's a club that you are interested in that you don't see really meets your need, you're more than welcome to start a new club. An example that comes to mind is the Darden School of Brew was just started this year. And that is something that takes a little bit of a different view and asks students to think about how you make beer and actually go through the process with a local brewery and then think about kind of the business side of it down the road as well.
That's really neat.
So lots and lots of options.
Yeah, I feel like I learned something new about clubs at Darden almost every day. And one thing I'd also like to highlight, just an overarching theme here about clubs. Darden fully embraces one of what I would call the core tenets of the University of Virginia student experience, and that would be student self-governance.
Mm-hmm.
Darden takes what our students have to say very seriously. And like Claire mentioned, students are given a lot of opportunities to lead their own clubs and organizations. So we have another good question about the application process. Somebody is wondering if applications are considered on a rolling basis. And the short answer would be no. Applications are not considered before the May 1st or August 1st deadline, respectively. At each of those deadlines, the admissions committee will review all of the completed applications. And that's when we'll start extending interviews. So that's an important thing to note about the application process. Not everyone will be given an interview, but it is required of those that will advance and ultimately be admitted. We conduct interviews for this program both in person and largely via Skype, just because we understand students are often located in different areas around the country those first few weeks after graduation in May for a lot of you. After the May round, there's also the round on August 1st where the process will repeat itself. We'll review all completed applications on August 1st and things will go from there. So we have another question specifically for Claire. Somebody was wondering, what sort of industry backgrounds do students in your section come from? What sorts of fields were they working in prior to Darden, and maybe where they're going next?
Sure. So pretty much anything you can think of, you can probably find at Darden. You have students that come from more traditional business backgrounds like finance or marketing. You also have students that are coming to Darden with previous experience as teachers or perhaps in the military. I have some classmates that worked at nonprofits. I have a classmate who worked on Broadway making costumes for large shows. So there's
Wow.
a huge variety of backgrounds. And I think that's what makes the MBA experience different from what you may have experienced in undergrad, is that people are bringing in the perspectives that they've had after working in all of these different industries for the past 2 to 7 or whatever it may be years since they graduated. So it's a really enriches conversations, especially when you're studying a case and someone is able to say, oh, well, actually, when I worked on a similar project at my company, this is what I experienced or how we approached it. So I think that variety really makes for a very, very interesting conversation and lots of different cool perspectives that you would never hear otherwise.
Great question. So we have another specific question about housing. Somebody was wondering, in terms of life at Darden, do students tend to live on campus or in the surrounding Charlottesville area? I think the vast majority of students, and Claire can confirm, live in one of 2 apartment complexes that are within a 5 to 10 minute walking distance to Darden. But depending on the nature of their personal situation, whether or not they're bringing along a partner, a spouse, or a family, there are also other opportunities for those students. What would you say, Claire?
Yep, definitely agree. There are 2 apartment complexes that are very close to grounds, walking distance, as you said. Most students live there. Some students live on the downtown mall or between Darden and the downtown mall and the Belmont area, for example. So there are a couple of folks that will live a little further out. And again, it totally just depends on your family situation. I would say is probably the biggest determinant factor as to whether or not you're going to live in one of those 2 main areas or a little bit further out.
Great. So it looks like we have a question specifically related to international students. Just to begin broadly, I will say this program is certainly open to international applicants. There's a question about numbers and how many we take each year. I would say broadly, Darden has a strong international presence, both inside and outside of the classroom, bringing in anywhere from 30 to 40% of our class being an international student. With this program being so new, I don't have any specific statistics on how many international students that are admitted future year scholars. So that's something to consider. So it looks like we have another question about housing in terms of cost of living and rent in Charlottesville. Claire, do you think you could speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So the expensive part, I would say, is very relative. Coming from Manhattan, for me, this was so much cheaper, but might not be the case depending on where you were before. I would say that rent will depend on whether or not you live alone or have a roommate. If you live with a roommate or perhaps multiple roommates, you could probably pay somewhere in the ballpark of $500 a month or less. And that will go up if you live alone, so maybe $1,000 a month. And it will vary a lot by apartment building and proximity to ground. So there's definitely a wide range. I think Charlottesville overall is very affordable in terms of cost of living. So that was a really nice transition.
Yeah, great answer. So we have a question about what sorts of areas students end up pursuing after Darden, and if the people that are coming in, whether or not they ultimately pursue the field that they were originally interested in, or if their classroom experience kind of shapes their perspective and they go a different route. So Claire, I might lean on you again. What sort of industries do you feel your classmates are going into, and did people come in with one thing in mind and change their mind?
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on the person. There are some folks who came in knowing exactly what they wanted to do and pursued that and will go there after graduation. Myself, as an example, I came in wanting to pursue a career in consulting, and that's what I'll be going after school. Other people came in thinking they were interested in this area or that area, but were a little bit more unsure and used a lot of the classroom, but I think more importantly, some of the career services forums to explore what other alumni are doing and just to hear about different careers they may not have known ahead of time. I think there are also some people who come in who are 100% sure on this career, and then they pivot when they learn about something new. So on one hand, I think there is value in coming into the program, having an idea of what you want, because there's so many things to choose from. It helps to do some kind of self-reflection to think about what you're passionate about and what you're interested in pursuing. But then on the other hand, there are just so many things that Darden has to offer and so many new experiences, new careers that you may never knew existed. So I think coming in, 100% settled can sometimes be a disservice, and it is a really good idea to explore all of your options. And at the first week, or perhaps the second week of programming as a first year student, the Career Services Center will bring in a bunch of different alumni to speak to students about their experience. And they'll bring alumni in from different areas of business, so finance, marketing, consulting, you name it, and just to share a little bit about their career path, what they did after Darden, how they got to where they are now, in an effort just to show students what all of their options really are.
That's great. Going back specifically to one of the incentives of becoming a future year scholar, somebody was wondering if the mentorship program provides students with a mentor based on their own personal career interests. And the answer is yes. We actually work really closely with our alumni engagement office as well as the admitted scholar to find a good fit. And we are most interested in pairing scholars with somebody that's both located in their geographic region and that's working in an industry they're interested in learning more about. It seems like we have a broad question just about entrepreneurship here at Darden and what sorts of resources are available to students. That's a really great question. I would say a lot of students do come to Darden as aspiring entrepreneurs. We do have a lot of resources for students interested in that field. Specifically, the one that comes to top of mind would be our Batten Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. It's a generously funded institute that provides students a lot of different opportunities to explore entrepreneurship as a career path. Namely, for example, all of our students between their first and their second year will go on to pursue some sort of internship that will ultimately lead many of them to a full-time job. But for a lot of our entrepreneurs, it can be challenging economically to go work at a startup that may not have a lot of funding. That's an example of somewhere where our Batten Institute could jump in and help fund that experience. In addition, we have a world-class incubator program here, our iLab, which I encourage you guys to learn more about online. Our incubator allows students to work with members of the Charlottesville community as well as other Darden students to launch and grow a venture. And provide students with resources to do those sorts of things, both during the academic year and during the summer.
And from an academic perspective, there are lots of different courses that you can take to help you create a venture or learn more about entrepreneurship. One of the leading thinkers on entrepreneurship is a professor at Darden, and she teaches a course that talks about her philosophy of effectual entrepreneurship. So it's really great to be able to learn about, the cutting edge of the industry from such a thought leader. So I think that that's been really helpful. And also when you're here, you're able to leverage your students or your peers, their backgrounds, their connections, who they may know from their previous careers. And I think that's another great way to help you get a venture off the ground if that's something that you're interested in.
Great. So it looks like we have a logistics question. A student was wondering, are you allowed to enter the executive MBA program after your work experience? Or is the Future Year Scholars program limited to the full-time MBA? It's a great question. So the Future Year Scholars program does feed directly into our full-time 2-year MBA program. While that's a good thought, as it stands currently, Future Year Scholars do matriculate and begin that 2-year full-time MBA. Good question. So we have a question, do fifth-year master's students, does that fifth-year master's degree need to be in the same field as their undergraduate degree to qualify as an applicant? The short answer there is absolutely not. We love to see students that have a variety of academic interests and a broad breadth of study.
And for the UVA Seed Fund specific question, so there are a couple different ways that you can get involved with that here. One is you can apply for the internship backing that Taylor mentioned, and there's an application and interview process for that would kind of serve as a stipend for your summer. You can also apply to work in the iLab in Charlottesville, and there's another application process there that's kicking off currently for this coming summer. There are also classes that you can take as a second-year student that allow you to actually manage a seed fund and work with some of the venture capitalists in the Charlottesville area who some of whom were Darden alum, some of whom were industry leaders in other areas and have since come to Charlottesville to call this home. So lots of different ways that you can get involved, all of which have a little slightly different application processes and would occur at different points in your Darden career.
Thanks, Claire. So it looks like we have questions specifically about Darden's global immersion courses. I'll expand that a little bit and just share with you all, there are a lot of opportunities for students to pursue a global experience here at Darden. You could think of it a little bit as a study abroad course. They often take place a couple weeks in the spring semester or over the winter holiday. But I think Claire could speak to what those types of courses look like. And have you participated in one?
Yep. So this past summer, the very end of my first year, I went to Argentina on a what we call a GBE, Global Business Experience, and worked on a vineyard. So that was considered a consulting project. We were helping different vineyards in the Mendoza region think through business problems that they had, such as how to attract more people to come visit, how they should run certain areas of their operations. So that was a really interesting, cool experience. This coming March, I'll be going to Israel with one of our professors, and we're going to spend the bulk of our time in Tel Aviv, but visit other cities as well. And there we're going to study entrepreneurship and new ventures because Tel Aviv is a really big hub for technology and new startups. So I think that'll be a really cool, interesting experience. But if you're interested in traveling abroad, there are a couple of ways you can do it at Darden. You can take a formal quarter abroad, which is very close to the study abroad from undergrad. So you would go to a partner university in another country, take classes there. If you want to be on grounds your entire time, but still get some more of this global experience, you can go on these week trips, 2-week trips like I did that are going to be in May of your first year or January of your second year or March of your second year. So lots of different opportunities. You can also take or sign up for what they call the global consulting projects. And those are projects that different businesses from around the world will put together and come to Darden and ask for help from students. And students will work on that business problem for a few months and then go over to the country and present their findings. And, it's treated a lot like a typical consulting engagement. So lots and lots of different ways to travel.
Yeah, and I'll point out that while a global experience is not required of our students here at Darden, the vast majority of students do pursue one of those opportunities just because they can be really valuable experiences, especially when you think about how global business is today.
And they're also really fun. Like, when else do you get a chance to go on a trip with 30 to 40 of your good friends and explore another country? So they're really unique, and you get to see parts of the country and get to visit companies that would be really, really hard to do on your own if you were just traveling for fun.
Right.
So I think traveling under the Darden name offers you a lot more connections and access. So that's another really great benefit of taking one of these courses through school.
That's great insight. And if you guys may have noticed, my colleague Blaine just shared a link with more information about Darden Worldwide courses, and those do change from year to year, so stay tuned. Do we have any other questions specifically about the nuances of the program, the incentives? It looks like we have a student asking again about entering the executive MBA program. Again, I'll reiterate, as it stands, students that are admitted as future year scholars will matriculate into the 2-year full-time MBA program. And again, anyone that's pursuing a 5th-year master's degree is still eligible to apply, and that degree does not need to be in the same field as your undergraduate degree. So it looks like we have somebody that's curious about the case method, specifically cold calling. What is that experience like in the classroom? Maybe what is cold calling?
I was cold called an hour ago. So cold calling means that a professor will pick a student and usually to open the class and say, Taylor, tell me about the case. What do you think? What's going on? What decision would you make? So cold calling it sounds scary, but it's really just a way to get students involved in prepared for class. I would say it's more common as a first year, and most professors will use the cold call to open up the course or the class for the day, just to kind of set the stage for the conversation. Some professors will give you a little hint ahead of time that might be 2 minutes before class starts that they're going to call on you that day, and then some will not. And I think it's just a way to help kind of keep you on your toes as a student. That's something that I actually found really valuable and helpful that I saw come to fruition in my summer internship this year. And that was that, in the workplace, you're always expected to be able to answer a question or be on your toes quickly. And I think that the culture of the cold call and being prepared for how to answer a question, maybe that you don't know the answer to, but kind of think through how you might approach getting to an answer is a really valuable skill that Darden teaches you through the cold call.
Absolutely. So we have a specific question about access to alumni. Somebody was wondering, how accessible are alumni, and do you find them particularly helpful with post-graduation employment? I'll kick this off and say, another thing we're really proud of here would be the strength of the Darden Alumni Network and the willingness of those alumni to jump in and help with special projects or to connect our students with their companies or their places of employment. Claire, could you maybe speak to a specific example of a student that was worked with an alum or something like that?
Sure. So alums will, especially those who have graduated in the past, 2 to 3 years, will be the ones that will come back to grounds and be the representatives of their firms. So you can meet them through formal avenues like that and just hear about their experience at different companies. There's also a whole database that lists all the Darden alumni that you can reach out to. And as a Darden student, you'd also have access to the broader UVA database. But thinking specifically about the Darden alumni, I've sent so many emails to alums that I just pulled from the database, had zero personal connection to, and every single person wrote back within a day and offered to set up calls or to talk to me about their experience working at the firms. They love hearing what current students are up to and kind of reliving their glory days of Darden. So they're super receptive to speaking with students. And then when it comes to recruiting and helping you get a job, they'll be really, really helpful with interview prep. I remember last year when I was going through interview prep for internships, a lot of alums from different firms would volunteer to give us mock interviews and give us feedback along the lines of, well, at our company, we really look for XYZ. So it's a really great way to help you prepare for the interview. And they'll also put you in touch with other folks at the company. So if you have a question they can't answer, they might put you in touch with a colleague who maybe isn't a Darden alum, or they might put you in touch with a hiring manager. And that's been extremely helpful to every student, every peer that I have here at Darden. I can't think of anyone who hasn't leveraged the alumni network, and I have never heard of an alum not responding and not wanting to help. So that's been a really, really great experience.
And again, specifically as an admitted future year scholar, you'll have access to a personal alumni mentor, as well as opportunities to engage with our alumni at various events. Great question. So we have a question specifically about financial aid and what sort of factors are considered. I'll broaden that just by talking about scholarships and financial aid in general. Like I mentioned, admitted future year scholars receive a guaranteed $30,000 scholarship at the time of matriculation. It's $15,000 per year of study. All of our scholars will also automatically be considered for Darden's merit-based scholarships at the time of matriculation as well. So we do evaluate students on a variety of different criteria when it comes to scholarship. They are merit-based, so we're looking at things like test scores, undergraduate GPA, involvement, letters of recommendation, essentially a lot of the things we're looking at when considering offers of admission. In terms of financial aid, I encourage you all to explore our webpage. There's a lot of helpful information about specific scholarships and financial aid and what that process looks like. We have time for maybe one more question, if there's anything on the top of your mind. Just again, want to thank all of you so much for joining us today, and we really hope this was helpful. Moving forward, we encourage you to stay connected with us. If you find you have lingering questions, please feel free to reach out to us via email. You can reach us at futureyear@darden.virginia.edu. Also, if you're interested in scheduling a phone conversation or Skype conversation with a member of the admissions committee, you can check out the link in that chat box. It's a great way to get the conversation started. Also, if you're a UVA undergraduate student or fifth-year master's student, we'll be hosting meetings on the corner at 15:15 during the next couple of weeks. You can also sign up for those under the Schedule a Conversation link as well. With that, thank you all again so much for your time. I hope you're ready to start the application. Again, those deadlines are May 1st and August 1st. Thanks again for joining us.
Bye, thank you.